You mentioned before the issue of sovereign risk. Do you believe that Australia's sovereign standing has been damaged, that there is an issue already of sovereign risk?
Yes, quite clearly there is, and that was a message that we were delivering to the government over recent weeks, and as recently as last week, in unequivocal terms, with the full support of our members across not just the mining sector but all sectors of the Australian community as represented by our 120 members of the Business Council. The evidence is that international investors are hesitant now about investing in Australia, not only in mining resource projects but in our general equities and other sectors of the economy. We have evidence that large international investors have decided to pull out of Australia. We are, after all, a relatively small investment destination and somewhat discretionary when it comes to international investors. So I believe there is already damage done, and I think that will reverberate around the boardrooms of London and New York and Beijing for quite some time. I might add that last week, early part of last week, I chaired an Australia-China business CEOs roundtable in Canberra, and there were a dozen or more representatives of some of China's largest companies, and it was interesting how many of them raised this as a deterrent to their otherwise keenness to continue to invest in Australia.
Can you tell us what evidence there is, and what effect has this damage or has this event had on capital raising, for example, by non-mining companies?
Well, there hasn't been a lot of it in the last, since the 2nd of May. I mean, international markets may not be all that conducive to that kind of capital raising at the moment. And so the evidence is inevitably anecdotal at this time. But, you know, there is feedback from our members, particularly those in the international investment and investment banking community, that Australia is now under a cloud as a destination for investment, and this is very unfortunate. We've particularly in our resource sector, we suffered 15 years ago from having a poor reputation in the industrial relations field, and over the last 15 years that reputation has been repaired. These reputations take quite some time to change in the eyes of international investors and those who sit in boardrooms and make these decisions about investing in Australia. And my belief is that this one, even if it were fixed in the next couple of months, will still leave a lingering set of concerns, which is very unfortunate.
How does one dispel those, Graham? I mean, the genie's out of the bottle in terms of the sovereign risk issue being raised. How does one calm the foreign investors down?
It'll be behaviour, it'll be actions speaking louder than words. We've got to see a resolution here that is genuinely supported by our major mining companies and more broadly, I think, by the business community, because there are aspects of this tax which, if taken to other sectors, would be equally, if not more, damaging. And one of our fundamental principles about tax change being prospective and not retrospective is a fundamental shift in a principle that has been pretty well sacrosanct in the way we've approached tax reform over the last 20 or 30 years. So we'll need to see the government appreciating the importance of a different message going out, as well as solving this particular problem.